All right, what's happening, friends? Welcome back for another episode of Waynecast. I'm Rob Johnson. So I want to talk today about the real estate market, and I am not a realtor, so I brought in my good friend Scott Griffith in the studio today to sit down and chat with us about what's happening in the market as we enter into fall and what we can expect in next year. Welcome back.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate being here.
So Scott, just you were on one of the other sit-down series that we did. We told the bio story, we told the origin story. You have deep roots in Livingston County, and I encourage people to go back and listen to that episode. We'll make sure to link that up in the show notes. But just give the folks at home just a 30-second rundown to who Scott Griffith is.
So been doing this all my life. This is our 40th year celebrating as my sister and I opening our office here in Brighton.
Congrats on that.
Thank you. It's very nice. Yeah, but goes back generations with my grandfather starting in the 1920s. So we're sort of like deeply rooted here in Brighton, and we've been here a long time, and we're blessed to have had some good success and have a pretty good grasp of what's going on.
That's good. And something that strikes me about you guys is independent.
Yeah. And so there was a period where we were a franchise. My sister and I started in our 20s, and we started with a franchise because we just couldn't believe independence could survive. And the reality is we became more well-known for our name than our franchise name, and we grew a lot. And so we've become independent, and frankly, it's back to who you know, not so much everything else. And so we're well-known, and that keeps us going. So,
okay. I want to dive into the market, obviously, but I want to stay on that just for a second, because I am curious, like, what are the pros and cons of going independent versus going with a franchise?
So franchises, when we first started out, they offered the ability to get national image, national advertising, things that we couldn't do on our own. And to be frank, when we were young, it also gave us a foundation of education that was difficult to get from a family business where you had a grandfather who says, I'd rather have 2 good listings than 10 bad ones. And you're like, okay. Well, that is great. But anyway, so, but ultimately, it's different sizes fit different folks, and every franchise has a different way of the way they establish. And so for some franchises, definitely a great image. And don't get me wrong, franchises are great. Our franchise we were in was good. It's just that we found that we weren't getting the same benefits that we can do ourselves. The difference is, too, technology has really flattened the playing field. I mean, the ability to be on the internet at any size takes away some of the advantages of a big buy that a franchise used to be able to make, say a big buy in media or something like that. And so it became a challenge. It becomes a challenge if you're a franchise company to demonstrate value to the independent, and the independent has to figure out what they're getting from the franchise. So those are some of the things that changed our mind too.
I see. Now, do you think the typical path for a realtor would be to start with a franchise and then move to independent, or is that not the typical path, or is it just with some people? I
think it comes down to the relationship that the person getting into business wants to have with their broker. Regardless of what the broker's affiliation is, if the broker feels strongly about the franchise they're with, they can see demonstrate the benefits. That may be the right thing. We have some number of very excellent new agents who they were more concerned about the support and the things that we could offer than they were about maybe a bigger name.
I see. Okay. Yeah, as I see more and more, as well as I do, realtors are coming in. I'm seeing a huge trend right now with teams. I'm sure you've seen that floating about. And basically, for the folks at home that haven't seen this or are not aware of this, but basically how it works is you have a broker. It might be under Keller Williams, or it might be under eXp Realty or something like that, and they have the broker, and then they'll have a lead agent, and that agent will spin off their own team and have realtors under them.
It becomes what's happening is people are saying name recognition has so much to do with this business, and so as people come in new, they're trying to find how they create their network, and to go with somebody who has a network and to help them and share in their commissions and to develop their name, so they create a team. And so we all know about the 80-20 rule, and it seems like 80% of the business done by 20% of the people. Well, real estate's getting more and more to be 90-10, and so if 10% of the people are doing 9% of the business, the new people need to find somebody to be with to help do that. So the team concept came about. It's not unlike having independent brokers, it's the same concept essentially. Yeah.
Sure. Do you find that teams can be effective for realtors that are just trying to get some notoriety, get some name recognition?
I think so. I mean, everybody is, you need to practice everything, and without being someplace where you can do some practice, even if you're not getting the whole enchilada, as they say, if you can just help out, just to get the practice and be able to do the things, because you want to do the best job you can for your client, and it's hard to get training if you don't do that.
Yeah, I don't have the math on commissions and how it works being on a team. I'm sure something goes to that agent that has the name recognition, but I would imagine that if let's say it's 80%, right? 80% of all the sales that you would get from being with that lead agent are probably a lot more than 100% of what you would have gotten had you not been with him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole point of it. It's hard to break into any industry, especially when it's 100% commission, and this is a way to get something versus nothing.
That makes sense. All right, Scott, so let's talk about the market. I think probably the most cliche is like the market's so hot, like it's just we know, like everything it's crazy. Inventory is low, just really common talking points. What I want to dive into more is just your assessment of what you're seeing right now. And then, by let's say June of next year, what do you think we're looking at?
Sure. So, we're blessed to be in what I call the most perfectly competitive market you can be in any industry. Supply and demand dictate everything. Any buyer can buy from any seller, and any seller can sell for any price that they can get a buyer to pay. So because of that, when there's very limited supply and demand is high, prices go through the roof. So in my life, I've never seen a time where I listed a home and we said that's the flag in the ground, and now from anything at that price or higher will be what we'll sell the house for. Used to be the common cliche was, when I list my house, we can always go down, but we can't go up. Well, it sort of flipped upside down. And so inventories have been dramatically impacted. They've been very, very low during COVID. It's partly driven by people continue to have good employment out here in Livingston County. They had money. They were coming out to the green space. They were getting out of the urban centers, and we just had no inventory. But it was nationwide. It was just like people just all of a sudden decided we need to get into a house. Home ownership has actually gone up substantially in the last 2 years. People are moving out of rental situations, but at the same time, housing starts have been the biggest challenge for the last 10 years, maybe 20. And it takes about 1.2 million housing starts a year to keep up with just the growth of population and the loss of housing stock due to floods, whatever, famine, whatever. And we haven't been at 1.2 million until possibly last year we got close. This year they're thinking they're on track. So imagine 10 to 15 years without enough housing stock and the population going up. So that goes with interest rates at only 3% for coming up on close to a generation, where we had never thought we'd see interest rates this low. So the affordability index went through the roof. That just pushed prices right through the roof. And between the lack of supply and that kind of thing, it just made prices go way up. Now, if you're a younger person, or I don't care who you are, is if you can afford X amount of mortgage, but the prices are going up at 15%, you start getting less house, you start getting frustrated, and you start to say, wait a minute, I either not going to buy, or I can't buy, or you just get a frustration point. And you combine that with what I call a fall market, where people get distracted with football games and school life and everything going on. And before long, all of a sudden, demand in the market starts to drop off. Well, what actually is happening right now is supply, that means, is on the market a little longer. But as pointed out by the Mortgage Association, mortgage applications are down as of this last 2 months really. They're still at a historically high level. They're just not at the peak. Same with supply. Supply is finally starting to stretch out a little bit. Prices are starting to flatten a little bit. The only problem is it's still way beyond anything that used to be a couple of years ago. It's just not what it was earlier in the year.
Right.
So I call it the landing. It's like a parabolic curve, and the fact is we've been going up at a very steep climb. We're flattening out. So to your question about where does this go, it's pretty clear that if things were to stay the way they are, we're just going to have what I call a flattening of the marketplace. Now, we don't know how things are going to be impacted, like if the government stops buying bonds, if the T-bills, the 10-year T-bills start to go up which coincidentally they're going down, so who knows what that means. But anyway, that would typically mean interest rates are going to go up if the 10-year, they're tied, the 10-year T-bills and mortgage interest rates are pretty closely tied. That might change things. So right now, it would look like to me that we'll see a flattened market through the winter. Prices won't probably decrease, but we probably won't see this over the asking price bidding that we've seen.
Okay.
The interest rates, they could creep up, but it's not going to impact the market a lot because they're so cheap. And then as we go into the next spring, I mean, I hope we get inventory so we can keep things in balance, or else we start over again with the process. Yeah.
So one aspect I want to talk about is more of the business side of an agency or a brokerage. So my thought has always been, let's say you have one broker and 10 agents, and it's a pretty uniform style agency, right? How much bandwidth can you realistically handle? So when people talk about volume and market, like it can be a crazy market or a really hot market, but can't an agency only handle their max bandwidth? Like even if the demand is there, you would need more bodies to support it, right?
Well, I mean, people work to the level they can work at, but the practical side is you can create systems and processes. Take the teams, for instance. They have systems, They may have a person who works with the buyers, a person who works with the sellers. They have a back room person maybe that processes the closing, so those buyers and sellers agents can be out there. So I'm sure there is a maximum capacity, but when you're in a 100% commission business, you never seem to know where that is.
Sure.
It's going to be hard to find.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think my the most interesting thing is just someone that obviously does the marketing for a lot of these real estate companies and just keeps a pulse on what's happening. Is people are seemingly hitting their limit of like, I don't know what else to do. Like it's just very busy right now. And like, I got to wonder, like, at what point is everyone like, all right, like this is just going to have a natural flattening. And it seems like we're there. One other thing that I saw, and we talked about this a little bit in the pre-show, was that buyers, their frustration index is going up, which is causing people to put their search on hold.
Yeah. And then there's no doubt. I mean, if you've looked all spring, and the house that you didn't decide to make an offer on at the beginning of the spring, you can't afford now. You go, how many more homes do I'm going to do this for? Yeah. There's a point at which you go, home ownership's really important, but the heck with it. I may have to wait and just see if
personal health might be a little more important.
I need to go get some sanity here, or something. So yeah. So there is a certain amount of that. But at the same time, we all have that curiosity capacity, and I don't know many people who haven't been in the market, or a lot of people that aren't even in the market, that don't have searches set up someplace out there on some website, and they're watching all the houses come on, and you can't help but to fall in love with that perfect picture, And so,
yeah, I think as I start to see kind of the trend of where this is going right now, I think as we get into next season, if inventory doesn't come through, we're going to see the exact same thing.
It'll look a lot like this one.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I mean, you asked about the real estate side. The hardest part is to be service oriented, because the frustration gets so high. The phone call comes in and people, or the text, and they want to see this second because they don't want to miss the opportunity.
Well, they've been preconditioned to know that it's going to be off the market in a day, so they need to be first.
Yeah. And sadly, we've seen it a lot this year. The excitement of the competition and winning the competition has sometimes then settled in once you won to realize, wait a minute, I don't know the house or this product I'm buying as much as I thought. And next thing you know, you're looking for ways to bug out because you've got buyer's remorse. Because buyers, the more it pushes your limits, the more buyer's remorse you have about a decision. So when you're at the top of what you can afford, you just paid more than anybody else would pay. You're going, what have I just done? Yeah. And maybe I should be thinking this twice. And we've seen a lot of situations where people have said, I have to get out. I can't make this happen.
It's got to be a roller coaster because you have, so if you're in the position where you're like, all right, we got to move, we got to find something else. You find the house, it's a crazy market. You make the offer. as you said, you're the only one that would pay that much.
I won.
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah.
And so you do that, and then you have, then you go through the inspection. And most people so my mom's a realtor in Northern Michigan. So she, people are buying things unseen, sight unseen. Just making an offer, and then they go through the inspection, and they're like, "Oh God, what did I do?"
It's not perfect, and you're like, "Well, I knew that."
and then all those mental games start to affect you. Like, I paid top dollar for something that's not perfect, that's going to give me headaches that I didn't really want, and so I can see how that can work against people, and that's why it just take the time. Like every other reasonable buyer is going to take the time. So if
we've actually had people who wanted to win so bad, they says, well, we'll waive the inspection. And I don't know a realtor in this town who says that they should do that.
It's a solid choice.
It's a really good decision for a buyer and a seller to have an inspection done. So everybody knows what they got, and nobody's going, I've been deceived,
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that in many of the coastal areas, California and the East Coast, that was a common practice, and I just can't see that. And the other frustration we saw amongst buyers this year that was quite significant was the amazing number of people who had the capacity to pay cash, and most people need a mortgage, and they can't believe they're losing to all these people who have a cash offer. And it's a fascinating dynamic. I'm not telling you I know where all the people get cash, but it was great for sellers, but it was a very difficult time for purchasers who were trying to just get themselves in a position to buy a house and had themselves pre-approved with the mortgage company and found themselves going, wait a minute, how is this inferior? So.
Yeah, what's the difference? Well, it's probably that closing time
exactly.
that's making people jump the gun.
Yeah.
So, Scott, as you guys are in this leveling off period, are you guys finding that you have time to kind of, not necessarily that, just to get reorganized or kind of re-strategize and get prepped for the next season, or is it just waves always coming?
Well, every fall becomes a period where you go, look at my desk. I got to get the stuff off this thing, and that period of going, I got to get better systems. I could do this more efficiently, and so yes, we spend a lot of time. It seems like this time of year doing that. At the same time, it gives us a chance to find and reach out to some of the folks who have other interests. Maybe they're looking for land. I mean, everything has a cycle. So if you're thinking of building next year, I think you should be in the market looking for land right now. So we're talking to folks who are like looking at what the lot is they might be building on or what they're going to do. There's no doubt that probably by January, the lake market all of a sudden explodes again because everybody says, I want to be in a house for time to get my boat in the water. Yeah. So the market has cycles as it relates to the kind of property. So,
yeah. I think that's really interesting, the preparation, and that kind of leads into the next topic I wanted to talk about, which is Realtor Prep in terms of reach out, advertising, marketing.
Sure.
We were talking about this yesterday as a team, and I said I think one of the biggest mistakes that people that are quote unquote seasonal make is that they put everything on hold when they're not busy,
right?
Not in anticipation for when they're going to be. So an example would be like if you're you do flat work, concrete,
sure,
things like that. Frost laws kind of stop you from doing that. But what's stopping you from getting next season booked right now?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's I met one of my friends. We're about the same age. He started in real estate a few years back, and him and I were talking about his strategy. He's out in the Canton area, and I said, "What are you going to do this winter?" It was kind of a trick question, and he's like, "I'm not stopping anything." He's like, "I'm going to go full speed and keep advertising and marketing and doing everything I can." I was like, "Right answer," because that's when most people shut their systems down. Advertising becomes very cheap in real estate in the November, December, January timeframe. Less bids, less activity. And then are you finding that a lot of realtors are taking that same approach, or do you find that they keep powering through?
It's a pretty powering through process. I mean, and part of that is, very few people who market to you products to use want to give you a month-to-month arrangement. They want a yearly arrangement because they understand the benefit to flattening out their cash flow just like it's good for you. And so,
sure.
and we're a relationship business, so I don't know. There's no time that you've ever stopped developing relationships, so I can't fathom, there are times you do more actual closings in business. There's no time that you do less networking with your friends.
Right. And that's, like for us, like just from the marketing advertising side, like and I've only done it a few seasons, so it's not like I've been doing it for 10, 20 years. But as I'm starting to see this trend, is that it's in November, December, January, February, things start to cool off because people are either doing less, prepping for tax season, holidays, whatever the reason is, and then things start getting really ramped up. But in those months when we're down, my approach to the team is not, hey, let's shut off all of our sales and networking and shaking hands and all of that. Like, we need to keep doing that, even when we're not busy, because that's the best time, because we can spend the most amount of time, redefining or just reestablishing those relationships with people.
Every business that has a small business that's you and maybe you whoever, you always realize that you have to keep doing extra. I remember I had a good friend whose father was a newspaper guy, and he always used to say, once I've sold enough ads to pay for this week, that's when I really go to work, because he knew that was all the gravy. That's when you made money, So if you've owned a business, you know that there's no downtime effect. You get juiced up when there's an opportunity to do more than you were able to do. So, it's a mentality of being on your own and doing your own business.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Scott, I know you have new realtors. What we talked about this on the last show. You said there was a certain number of realtors that enter and exit the market every year.
Yeah, nearly a third of the market is either coming or going.
That's right, a third of the market.
Yeah.
So what are you finding so if you had a new realtor that was coming in, what are a few things you'd tell them to help them just kind of gain more knowledge of what they should be doing?
Well, of course, what your company offers in the way of training is crucial. So we make sure they come in and they get the fundamentals of the process and the paperwork and all those procedural things. And then you work on your strategy for how you're going to go out and make sure you work with your existing network of friends and try to find a new network of friends to make sure that people know your name. So we spend a lot of time with helping them try to find networks and systems, and some people buy leads to try to do it. Some people buy advertising. Other people get into groups and do it. Everybody's got whatever their comfort level is. I mean, as many people as there are, there's different ways to do it, and we just try to help them match their personality with what they want to do.
Yeah, I think it's important, because when you're in a new market, even when we have new people come into our shop, like, marketing is a very different world. And as I've said before, there's no college class for us that prepares any type of creative for doing the work that we do.
Sure.
Because this was Speakeasy and Wayne Media, it's all custom. It's not like you're going to take how to engineer and market a podcast 101 at Lansing Community College. That doesn't exist. So it's important to have that framework of here's the fundamentals.
Sure.
Here's the basics. And as you explained, like, the better you are at the procedural stuff, the better you are at the paperwork, that just becomes second nature, and you can focus on expanding your network, finding a new group of friends to get known in.
And this is when there's more time is a good time to sharpen your knives, as they say. So it's a good time to go out and get more education. Go do those things that allow you to be better at your trade, whatever your trade is,
No, for sure. And that's a big part too. And I'm noticing a cycle within myself where we get into this spot where we get really busy, and I find my education bucket is starting to lower because my task manager bucket is raising, and my job is to kind of balance those two things out, and it gets difficult.
It's amazing. I mean, there's a small business person doesn't know how that feels.
Yeah, because there's just so many things coming at you, and that's where those processes and procedures, and that's one of the things I really harp on a lot is, do we have a process for this? And that was ingrained in me from the last job I had, which is we need to have processes on everything. So when someone new comes in, you can show them the white paper, they can run through it. It's there. It's at least a starting point.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sure it's just similar in your business, but real estate's fascinating because every buyer, every seller, and every property is different. Yeah. So the variables are dramatic. In fact, I like to say during the time we train new agents, I'm going to help you understand where the curbs on the road are, but you got to go down the road the way you got to go. And every time you do a deal, it's a different path. Just stay inside the curbs. Yeah. So,
no, that's exactly right. Because it's just like, there's this thought that we have. So if we work with a lot of realtors and we have Livingston County and Oakland and whatever, that everybody is the same. It's like, well, no, like
Yeah,
Scott Griffith, 40 years in the industry, is a very different company to represent than someone that's just getting started on the east side of Detroit.
Exactly. I mean, and what they deal with in their product market,
Exactly.
is so different, and so we, there's just, it's the same old thing, you just sort of follow the principles and then let your heart be your guide, So,
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Scott, give me a couple things. What are you looking forward to next year? What does Griffith have coming up on the horizon that people can look forward to?
Well, I think like we've already talked about, balancing what the market's going to be like next year. We've been blessed to have some of the best years we've ever had the last 2 years, and I guess without not really trying to be greedy, we just like to maintain that kind of level of activity. We're very pleased to be we think we're able to represent our clients the best we can. We're a real relationship family in the way we do. I guess it's sort of like the family thing, So we do a lot with the same people. 80% of our business is referral business from people we've done business with. Many times it's the same people. So it's probably going to be just developing those connections and trying to find out how we can help them again next year. Because frankly, when the market's going well, a lot of the same people do a lot of the same real estate, and we try to help them with that, or help their families with that.
Yeah. And that's why one avenue that I think you guys have executed on really well is that local trust, credibility. It's huge. I mean, when you have easy recommendations, when you say, hey, do you know a realtor? It's like, yeah, Scott Griffith. I have a handful of realtors that I know extremely well that build off of credibility. So if there's someone that needs something, it's nice to be able to have that recommendation. I think you guys have always understood that.
Well, thank you. I mean, obviously we actually try to work at it. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, we want.
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, people try and do it. And the way that bothers me the most is you mentioned lead buying earlier. So people will put out ads that say, hey, here's the top homes under 200,000, and they'll have all these leads coming in, and it's just like a conveyor belt. Like there's no relationship. They're just trying to make a quick sale, and they're not focusing on the long game.
Yeah,
it's frustrating.
This when you make the biggest investment of your life traditionally, this is not a unit per unit sort of game. This is a transaction of emotion and people, and so we stay very focused on that. We don't get me wrong, we want to do as many as we can, Rob.
Right,
Sell as much as we want.
Absolutely.
But we want to do it based upon exactly what you're saying about the fact that you feel good about it when you're done, that we did what we could for you.
Yeah, it's not a nonprofit, we
like no, not yet. And when it is, I won't be seeing you.
Right. Well, exactly. It's you want to build a system that you can feel good about. Right. That you can get as many leads into the cycle as you can and serve them well, and that's the goal. But I feel like that service angle, people seem to forget, and that's what bites them in the ass in 10 years, because like, where'd all my business go? And it's like, well, you shoot it all away with your transactional mentality.
Yep, and that's it. If you think of it as transactions only, you're in trouble. You're very in trouble. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Scott, appreciate it, man, as always.
Hey, thanks,
appreciate
Rob.
the market updates.
Yeah, we'll see if I'm right?
I think we're in good shape. So
okay.
Absolutely. All right, friends. Well, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Waynecast. I appreciate you listening. Be sure to check out Scott's first appearance on the show in the show notes, and you can also look at all things Griffith Realty in the show notes as well. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care.